We're talking here about a person who is experiencing what's called Timtum Halev. Timtum Halev HaMoach, which means that the heart is stopped up. The person is incapable of feeling excitement, passion, joy, love in the areas of Kedusha. And although the person thinks about the greatness of Hashem, contemplates the greatness of Hashem, and understands the greatness of Hashem, but for whatever reason, the pipes are clogged. You know, the way that the Eibishter created the human being, it's a brilliant piece of spiritual plumbing. Meaning that there are pipes. It starts with the mind. Thank you very much. It starts with the mind. And from the mind, the pipes take it into the heart. And from the heart, it goes through the various parts of the heart, the various middas. And then it manifests itself as machshava, dibur, maisa, thought, speech, and action. So when everything is clear, when the system is clear, something that begins over here will end up in thought, speech, and action after having gone through the process of the emotions. But if there's something over here clogging, there's for some reason that the heart is not going along. Although that I understand, although that I think, although I contemplate, but it is not engendering the appropriate emotional response. So the Rebbe says that he brings from the Zohar a piece of wood which doesn't catch fire, so you have to splinter it to little pieces. And the same thing is gufa, a body. The light of the neshama, the passion, the fire of the neshama is not catching on to the guf. It has to be crushed. So if you're not getting excited and passionate, you're not having an emotional response towards Hashem, towards Torah and mitzvahs, so the antidote to that is crushing oneself. And why is it oneself? So we discussed this last week, that by the Beinoni, in other words, the person who is not the tzaddik, who is the self? Who is the natural self? Who am I? I am the nefesh habahamis. My natural desires are to satisfy myself and to take care of myself and to gratify myself. And to a certain extent, my spiritual self, my nefesh elikis, its desires are relatively strange, relatively foreign. They're not the native, natural desires that I have. So because I am the klipa, I am the nefesh habahamis. So therefore,
klipa noga, right?
Klipas noga, yeah. So therefore, I need to crush myself. I need to crush my ego in order for the light of the neshama to be able to take hold, and in order for the fire of the neshama for me to be able to get excited and passionate, etc. Let's do this inside. I think we did this last week, but we'll repeat a little. We're going to start 8 lines from the top of Lamed Vav. That's opposite of page 70. The last word in the line is ulazois. Ulazois, and therefore, in other words, because of there's this blockage, because the heart is not catching on. So the klipa needs to be crushed. Ulashpila la'afar, and denigrated and brought down to the earth. The hainu l'kvoya itim, it means that one has to designate times, lahashpil atzmai, to denigrate oneself, liyasnivza be'einav nimas, to be disgusting and repulsive in one's own eyes. Kakasov, as the pasuk says, v'leiv nishbar, that when you have a broken heart, then ruach nishbara, that's how we break the ruach atuma, the spirit of impurity. Hiya sitra achra, that is the sitra achra, the klipa, shehi ha'adam atzmai. By the average person, by the Beinoni, by the struggler, that is the person is the Sitra Achra. Shenefesh hachiyunis hamachaya haguf, because the nefesh habahamis, which gives life to the body, he betakva kitodasa, is at full strength, bilibai, within his heart. So nimtza, turns out he adam atzmai, that this is the person himself. The nefesh habahamis is the person himself. I have a neshama. You're telling me that I'm nefesh habahamis. How about my neshama? Yes, true you have a nefesh elokis, but regarding the nefesh elokis, Nemar, it is said, Neshama shenasata bi tohirahi. The neshama that you placed within me is pure. Shenasata bi, that you placed within me, daika. We can infer from these words, Meklal sha'adam asmi inenu an neshama tohira. I am not the neshama. The neshama is something which is placed within me. Let's stop over here. So a simple reading of the Tanya over here would seem to tell us that what am I? I am klipa. I am the nefesh habahamis and I have a neshama within me. The Rebbe addresses this, and the Rebbe says that even though the Rebbe says this, but this is only the way it seems, but it's not the fact. In fact, who is the real you is the nefesh elokis, not the nefesh habahamis. Even by every yid, even by the beinoni, even by the struggler, the true you is the nefesh elokis. And what is the proof? What is the raya? What is the proof that the true you is the nefesh elokis? The litmus test is, and this is something which we've discussed at length in previous chapters and previous prakim, is that when a yid is put to the test, whether to give to repudiate or reject his Yiddishkeit, chas v'shalom, or to give up his or her life, the choice that a yid will make is to give up his or her life rather than repudiate his relationship with Hashem and his Yiddishkeit. And we've spoken about this many times, and I think we've mentioned the fact that a yid is willing to give up his life al kiddush Hashem is, to a certain extent, the most important thing you need to know about a yid. And why is that? And when we say a yid is willing, as a rule, yidden are willing. Millions and millions of yidden throughout the generations. And why is that? Because there is nothing. The nefesh habahamis. What is the nefesh habahamis? It is the desire, as mentioned. It is self. If you want to put the nefesh habahamis into one word, it would be self. Nefesh elokis. What is one word? What you want to put into one word would be bittul. Bittul, right? So the nefesh habahamis is self, or yeshus in Hebrew, and the nefesh habahamis is self, or ego, or yeshus.
Narcissist.
I wouldn't say narcissism. Narcissism is a disorder, just the sense of self, the sense of that the most important thing is me, and I'm working to make myself happy and to pleasure myself and to gratify myself and to preserve myself. And the nefesh elokis is bittul. There is nothing more basic to the nefesh habahamis. What does nefesh habahamis want? It wants a lot of things. But the most basic thing, what is the most basic desire of the nefesh habahamis? Is to be.
Pleasure.
Is to be.
Be.
Because if it doesn't exist, there is nothing. There is no pleasure. Self-preservation. The instinct of self-preservation is greater than anything else. The desire to live, the desire to be. It's the strongest desire that a person has. It's the strongest drive that a person has. Self-preservation or self-perpetuation. Someone puts a gun to the head of a yid and says, either you bow down to a cross or I'm going to kill you. What is the nefesh habahamis saying? What does the nefesh habahamis want to do?
Survive. No, bow down.
It wants to survive. Nefesh habahamis, it wants to survive.
Yeah, it's not going to be.
With every fiber of its being, the only thing that it wants is to survive. Self. Preserve the self. There is nothing that is more antithetical to the nefesh habahamis than allowing itself to cease to exist. What does the nefesh elokis say? Nefesh elokis, there is no self. It's more than happy to give up its life al kiddush Hashem.
What about the Marranos? They're not Jews?
That's a good question. And if you go back if you go on YouTube or Baal Shem Tov Library and the classes we gave on chapter 18 and chapter 19, we spoke about that at length. So I don't want to repeat it, but we spoke about that. Okay. Chapters 18 and 19 in Tanya. The Nefesh Elokis is very happy to give up its life. Who wins the war? Historically, the Nefesh Elokis, which means that the desire to connect to Hashem is more deep-seated than the desire for self-preservation. Is there anything else you need to know about a Yid? Really, I mean, that's all you need to know about a Yid. That his or her desire to maintain the relationship with Hashem is more important than existence itself. So which is more primary, the Nefesh Elokis or the Nefesh Bahamis? We must say the Nefesh Elokis. We must say that. We must say that.
Based upon
even by every single Yid, which one is deeper, which one is more central to our existence, is the Nefesh Elokis. Because when push comes to shove, the Nefesh Elokis handily and easily defeats the Nefesh Bahamis.
You're saying this statistically, based on statistics, or
saying based on historical precedent that Yidden throughout the generations give up their life like Kiddush Hashem. Yes, there were exceptions, and we spoke about those exceptions.
I know before.
They weren't really exceptions. Really, they were also part of it. They were also Yidden, and they also would have given up their lives not to separate themselves from Hashem, but they deluded themselves into thinking that they can still remain connected to Hashem in that state. So therefore, who am I? I'm at the deepest part of who I am. I'm the Nefesh Elokis. And then the Rebbe adds something else which is very interesting. And we'll understand this better in a few parakim when we learn Perek Lamed Beis, which is about Avos Yisrael. The Rebbe says the ability to have Avos Yisrael, which Alter Rebbe we're going to talk about this at length again in a few weeks from now, is the ability to have what Alter Rebbe describes as Nafsham Ikar V'Gufa Yitafel, that a person's soul should be primary and the body should be secondary. Nefesh Elokis is primary, Nefesh Bahamis is secondary. Why? It's very simple. On the Nefesh Elokis level, we're all one. On the Nefesh Bahamis level, we're all selves.
Self-entities.
Right? Selves. We're all, I'm not you and you're not me, and we're each one of us is out for our own self-gratification. So how can I have a haftal riyacha kamaycha? Only if what is primary is my neshama. Because on that soul level, I can achieve unity with all of Klal Yisrael. If you're going to tell me that who am I is the Nefesh Bahamis, as it seems to be implied from the Perek Tanya over here, then it would be impossible for every Yid to have Avos Yisrael. Who would be able to have Avos Yisrael? A tzaddik whose neshama is primary and guf is secondary, so the tzaddik can have Avos Yisrael. But the mitzvah of Yehavta l'riyacha kamoicha is spoken and said to every single Jewish person, not only tzaddikim, which means to tell you that every single Yid has the ability to live a life wherein the neshama is primary and the guf is secondary. So we can't say, I am the guf, because if I am the guf, then I can't have Avos Yisrael. For me to have Avos Yisrael, I have to be the neshama. Nevertheless, Alter Rebbe says over here in Tanya, that who am I is the guf. So we have to, and the Nefesh Bahamis. So we have to differentiate. There is the natural me, there is the default me. The natural default me is the Nefesh Bahamis. That we know. We know that for a fact, as we established that last week. SNS, right? What's the natural me? I want to eat, I want to drink, I want to have pleasure. And the desires of the Nefesh Elokis seem to be foreign to the natural and default me. But the fact that the Nefesh Bahamis is more natural to me and is my default mode of behavior and feeling doesn't mean that it's the primary me. The primary me always remains the Nefesh Elokis. And here in this Perek we're going to say that the Nefesh Bahamis is klipa and we have to break the Nefesh Bahamis. We have to do a mevachinai, we have to crush it. I have to crush myself. Yeah, but which self? Am I really crushing myself? I'm crushing my Nefesh Bahamis. What does that allow for when I crush my Nefesh Bahamis? That allows for the realist me, the deepest me, to be able to emerge and for myself to catch on fire with the light and with the passion of the Nefesh Elokis. So let's move on over here.
How do you crush yourself?
How do you crush? That's what we're going to learn. We're going to start doing that very soon. Okay. Ki'im b'tzadikim, a little more than halfway from the top of the page. Ki'im b'tzadikim. Only by tzadikim, by them their soul is primary. Shebehem ulahepach. In other words, by them their soul is their natural default setting. Shebehem ulahepach, by tzadikim the opposite is true. Sheneshama tahira she nefesh alikis, the pure soul, which is the godly soul. Hu ha'adam. That is their default state. That is their natural state. That is who the person is. V'gufam, and their body, and the nefesh habaham is nikra bisar adam. That is only the flesh of the person, but the person himself is the nefesh alikis. Ukemaimid Hillel Hazaken, as Hillel Hazaken would say l'talmidav to his students, when Hillel would go eat, what would he say? He would say that he's going to do kindness with the shamed one and with the poor one. He was referring to his body. Because to Hillel Hazaken, the body was like a stranger. The body's needs were like strange needs, as opposed to by us, where it's the opposite way. And therefore he said that he was doing a kindness to his body by when he was feeding it. Because Hillel himself, he was the nefesh alakis. It alone was giving life to his body and to his flesh. Because any evil, any sense of ego that was beforehand in the nefesh bahamis, which was in his blood and in his flesh, was transformed to good. And it's become completely subsumed in the nefesh alikis b'tzadikim, that is by tzadikim. But by a beinini, by a struggler, by other people, everyone other than tzadikim. Because the essence of the nefesh bahamis, of the sitra achra, hamlubashas bedame, which is in his blood, ubisari, and his flesh, loy napach l'toiv, was not transformed to good. Harehihi adam atzmoi. So this is who you are. You are your nefesh bahamis, v'imkein. And if so, urochik mashem betachlas harichuk. If so, you're ultimately distant from Hashem. Oh, okay. You asked how we do the mevat shalei, how we crush. Now we're beginning. The Alter Rebbe begins by saying, who do we have to crush? Or what do we have to crush? We're saying we have to crush the klipa. The wood, right? The wood has to be chopped. What is that wood? What is the klipa that has to be chopped to allow the neshama to catch fire? So the first thing he said is, that's you. That's you. Your ego. Yourself. You're too smug. You're too self-satisfied. You might be doing all the mitzvahs, but the fact that you, that you are a mitzias, that already is a klipa, and that has to be broken. So because you are klipa, you have to be broken. How do you break it? How do you break it? Well, the first thing is that thought itself. That thought itself is enough to break a person. The thought that I am klipa. And as Alter Rebbe is going to say, because we are the nefesh habahamis, that is our natural default setting. The natural me is me, and I have my desires. That makes us ultimately distant from Hashem. This is a shocking statement. We're used to thinking that a person does averos, he becomes distant from Hashem. You do mitzvahs, you become close to Hashem. The Alter Rebbe is saying, you and me, due to our very constitution, our God-given constitution, we are distant from Hashem. It's not an issue of blame. You're not guilty. You didn't do anything wrong. But in the pecking order of things, there's nothing more distant from Hashem than you. As Alter Rebbe says, you're more distant from Hashem than a mosquito, than a treifa animal. Why is that?
You have a nefesh elokis in you.
You have a nefesh elokis.
Yes, that's it. You have to be distant.
But the Alter Rebbe,
you are chelik memal.
but the Alter Rebbe just established that who is the default you? When you wake up in the morning, which soul is automatically activated?
Nefesh Bahamas
is
the predominant cell there all the time.
So if that's true, why is the first thing we do when we open our eyes saying Modani?
Because, well, that's the Nefesh Elokis waking up, but it's a second after the Nefesh Bahamas.
Comments allowed or not?
Comments are allowed, but it's very possible that if you wait 2-3 minutes, because I'm only beginning to explain what I'm saying.
I'll wait.
But in general, yes, comments are allowed. What does it mean to be close to Hashem? What does it mean to be close to another person? Closeness in a spiritual sense means being in sync. When you have a good friend, what makes you close to that friend? Shared desires, shared interests, shared way of thinking. You know, they say opposites attract. That's not true. If you have a friend and you think, why am I friends with that person? It could be despite the fact that we are opposites in certain ways. But if you're that person's friend, it's because there's definitely many things that you share with that person. What brings you close to someone is shared interests. It's not all about behavior. A grotesque example. If someone, if you had a friend and that person tells you that one day, I never confided this with anyone, but you're my friend, I'll confide in you, and there's this desire I have, 10, 15 times a day I fantasize about it. I like killing people with an axe. But I would never do it. Never do it. Self-control. Don't worry, you don't have to be scared of me. How's your relationship with this person going to continue from there on?
It's not going to be a good relationship.
But what's wrong? The person never did anything wrong. And
he might turn on you.
But is that the problem, that you worried he might? Well, what if you were confident he wouldn't turn on you? The distance that's created, the fact that there could be a person who wants to do that, how can you want to do that? I'm a kind person, I'm a giving person. For me, to someone who wants to kill someone, it just... Now, how close are we to Hashem if we desire to do Averis? How in sync are we with Him? If what are we really thinking about all day is about ourselves and about doing Averis? Even if we never act upon them, even if we actually never do an Avera, the very fact that me and Hashem are on totally different pages, His agenda and mine are so different, goes to show how distant I am from Hashem. A tzaddik is in sync with Hashem.
So why did God create a person in such a fashion, as far as an initial...
This is not about culpability, this is not about guilt. This is about fact. Do you accept that a mosquito is very distant from Hashem?
Sure.
Compared to an angel? So what did the mosquito do wrong? We're not blaming the mosquito. It's a mosquito. But the fact is that the mosquito is not an angel in terms of its relationship with Hashem. So you should know that you're lower than a mosquito. Not your fault, that's the way Hashem created you. But in terms of an honest self-assessment of who you are, why? Because at the end of the day, why are you lower than a mosquito? Because the mosquito never has a desire to go against Hashem's will. And you do. You are on a completely different page than Hashem. So the conversation began with that the mevatchinle, the crushing, has to start with oneself. Why? Because you are the nefesh habahamis. Once you understand that you're the nefesh habahamis, that also becomes the key to how to do the mevatchinle. If you're to take a moment and to think into your spiritual state and realize how lowly you are, how do you judge how lowly you are? You know, you ever heard that expression? Where a person's will is, that's where he is. There's a story, maybe it's about the Frierdiker Rebbe. I don't remember who, but he was a kid who was looking out the window. And he was in Cheder, he was learning. It was a nice day outside, he's looking out the window. And I don't know whether his teacher or maybe the Rebbe told him, his father the Rebbe, said it's better to be outside looking in than to be inside looking out. Because there's a word from the Baal Shem Tov, the idea from the Baal Shem Tov, that where your desire is, that's where you are. Where's your desire?
Outside.
Right. I'm saying it, all of us, where's our desire is outside. So we learn, so we learn Torah, and we do mitzvahs. But we are so removed from a spiritual way of life. And this is a very, very humbling thought. It's a very humbling thought. In case you ever, when you're a little excited about yourself, a little happy about yourself, this is the mevatchinle. Number one, you have to know that if you are if you're not a spiritual person, and spirituality doesn't interest you, you're just, then okay, so distant from Hashem, close to Hashem, no big deal, this way or that way. But a person who kirvas elokim yachbatz, a person who desires to be close to Hashem and takes a moment to reflect on how distant he really is from Hashem, that's a devastating thought. Devastating thought. Now, yes.
How does Hashem act? How does it do action? Take Bereshit. Starts off, there's one, 6 days there's many, Shabbat there's the one and the many. Right? Dialectical logic. Okay, so if I take stock of myself, I see I have my manyness, and then there's the idea to somehow bring the manyness and the oneness together. Okay, but I think the idea of crushing my manyness, I would not be a Tzelem Elokim.
Okay, that was more a statement than a question. I do want to point out that there are always two sides to the coin. For example, we're saying that the human being is the only creature that has a desire to go against Hashem's will, and that makes us very, very distant from Hashem. The opposite side of the coin is that because we're the only creature that has a desire to do differently than what Hashem wants, that's what makes us the greatest. Because it's what gives value to whatever we do. We're not robots. We actually want to do differently, and we still do what Hashem wants, which is what makes us so great. And they're both true. Both sides of the coin are true. However, right now, in this Perek, and in the next Perek, we are focusing on mevatchinle. We are deliberately ignoring one side of the coin, because since the goal is to crush ourselves, because there's a certain problem. Again, the crushing isn't the end, it's the means towards the end. The problem is that a person is experiencing timtum alev. The person is not able to have experienced the fire of the neshama, the passion of the neshama. So to be able to re-experience that, we need a crushed nefesh habahamis. So we are deliberately going to look at everything in a very one-sided way. Later, afterwards, when we need to come back to a place of simcha, and as we'll find out, actually, this crushing not only is it not an impediment to simcha, but at least to simcha, we are going to transition and we're going to start looking at the other side of the coin of everything. And that's going to lead us to simcha afterwards. But right now, we are actually, our goal is to humble ourselves. And for that purpose, we are going to have blinders. And everything we're going to say here is true. It's not a half a truth, but there are many different truths, right? And which one are we going to focus on today? The truth is that from a certain perspective, there's nothing more distant from Hashem than the human being. There's nothing less in sync with Hashem than the human being, due to the fact that human being, forget about the fact that we do things that He doesn't want. Even if you've never done anything that Hashem doesn't want, okay? Even if you're the highest, you're a Beinoni, but the mere fact that you desire something which Hashem doesn't want already puts you in the position of something which is ultimately distant from Hashem. Let's do this inside. Top line, page 72. Why are you ultimately distant from Hashem? Sharei, because the faculty of desire, shebenafshi bahamis, and yonefesh bahamis, which again is your natural self, yachol gam ken lisavles ledvarim masurim, has the ability to desire things that are forbidden. Shehim neged ritzoni yisbarach, things that go against Hashem's will. And even if you don't actually really want to do it, but they're not repulsive to you like it is by a tzaddik. In other words, on Yom Kippur, you want to eat. Not that you're really going to eat, not that you desire, but you want to eat. By a tzaddik, the thought of eating on Yom Kippur is nauseating, right? By us, even in those areas where we are victorious, and even those areas where it's not just, where we're not even struggling that much, the fact that we have a desire for it. How can you have a desire for something which Hashem finds repulsive? What does that tell you about your relationship with Him? And in this, you are lower, more depraved, and more disgusting than treifa animals, and creepy crawly things. Kinis Galil is mentioned earlier in chapter 23. And as David the Melech says, I am a worm. Meaning that just like a worm desires low things, I desire low things. I'm not a person. But if you think into it, if a person desires low things and a worm desires low things, so who is lower? The person, because I'm a person. Why am I drawn to these low things? Sorry?
This was before David Melech became a tzaddik.
Apparently so. The Gemara says about David HaMelech that he killed his Yitzhar B'tainis, which implies that, yeah. The Gaman also, Kishmishkaberes Beinafshi Elikis. Even when the Nefesh Elikis overpowers the Nefesh Bahamis, completely overpowers it, and awakens the love for Hashem b'shasat filam during davening. It's not the ultimate truth. This Ava is not the ultimate truth. Because after davening, this Ava goes awake. In Yisrael Yila, as mentioned earlier, Saif Perik Yud Gimel. Anyone here remembers the context of Perik Yud Gimel? Was it a year ago? We learned it. It's fascinating. In Perik Yud Gimel, the Alter Rebbe says that you should know that the Ava of the Beinoni during davening, the Ava of the struggle during davening, is not the Emes Lamita. It's not the ultimate truth like the Tzaddik. Because the Tzaddik's Ava is constant and enduring. Emes, the definition of Emes, is something which always is. It's not dependent on any other circumstance. Then it's not really Emes. It's dependent on something else. Says Alter Rebbe, but says the Beinoni, don't be distressed by that. Why? Because it's your truth. Your truth. It's not the Emes Lamiti of a tzaddik, but your Ava is your truth, and the fact that every single day that you can daven, and during davening you can reawaken the love for Hashem, so it's your truth. So in Perik Yud Gimel, when the Alter Rebbe brings it down, the Alter Rebbe is reassuring the Beinoni. And over here, the Alter Rebbe is suddenly taking it and using it to knock the Beinoni. But again, that's all the context of where we are. We're trying to accomplish something over here. So you're all proud of yourself. Why? Because you daven, and when you daven, you're consumed with the love for Hashem. Great! But where is that love after davening? It's gone. What does that show you about the love? That it's not be'emes lamita. It's not the ultimate true love, because ultimate true love doesn't disappear after 10 minutes. So this is all part of the mevachinli, of the crushing of the nefesh bahamis. So the first of the person. So the first thing when a person needs to do mevachinle, crush himself. It's kind of interesting because for most of us, if we're feeling, let's say we're suffering this problem. Let's talk practical. We feel timtum halev. My heart is like a stone. So what would be step number one? So first of all, step number one is not mevachinle. We mentioned this last week. Step number one is take a sefer Tanya, take a sefer Chassidus, take a sefer Musar, learn about the greatness of Hashem, think about it, and try to get your heart inspired. It might take you an hour, it might take you 2 hours, but sitting 2 hours with a sefer and learning about the Gadlus Hashem, or learning, usually does the trick. It should do the trick. That's step number one, right? Step number two, that's not working, so you realize you need a mevachinle, right? As the Alter Rebbe says over, you need a mevachinle. You need to humble yourself. You need to get off your high horse and realize that you're not, as they say, God's gift to mankind. So how do you do a mevachinle? Exactly, Yaskele Yema Misa. Exactly, right?
The Gemara says that.
Gemara Brachas, right? It's a similar idea. Yeah. But Yaskele Yema Misa, just to point out, is the last option the Gemara gives.
There was other two options.
Learn Torah, say Kriya Shema, right? There are a few things, and if all of this doesn't work, then Yaskele Yema Misa, which is similar to here. The mevachinle is a last resort, because the first resort is not it's not musar. It's not the first resort is not to humble yourself. But if nothing works, so how do you do mevachinle? I'm asking you, if you had to go and you had to humble yourself and think about how low you are. So for most of us, it's not very difficult. We don't have to think too hard to figure out how lowly we are and how many things we're not doing properly. The challenge that the Alter Rebbe faces here in Tanya is that Tanya is ostensibly also addressing the person who has never done an Avera, a Beinoni. That's a tough one. How is this person supposed to humble himself? Maybe he is God's gift to mankind. He does all mitzvahs. He stays away from Averas. He davens with Avos Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe is taking us to high. Even if you are a Beinoni, the fact of your existence and the fact that your natural self desires things that Hashem doesn't want, that already can humble you. But I think for most of us, I don't think that we have to go that far. There are easier ways probably for us to, and we probably don't even have to think too far back, not more than a day or 2 or 3 to come up with reasons and why to humble ourselves. Okay, so the first thing the Alter Rebbe says is that your desire for things that Hashem finds repulsive means you're not in sync with Him. That means you're distant from Him. Spiritual distance means you're not on the same page. What do they say about a husband and wife? Once the relationship is good, when one begins the sentence and the other one ends the sentence, right? That's being on the same page. That's being in sync. Can Hashem start some words and me and some words? No, we're in different wavelengths. This is I'm a yesh, right? I'm about myself, and Hashem is about Him. A tzaddik is not about self. Number one. Number two, you think that you're so great because when you daven, you have Avos Hashem, shvacha ava. What? It goes away. It goes away.
It's not true.
Okay, and then we're going to move on.
Can I please say something? I've been doing therapy for 40 years, okay? It's Gestalt therapy. And the process of Gestalt therapy is you help a person be aware, and when the moment a person starts being aware here and now, they discover that they have polarities. I'm on the one hand, I'm this. On the other hand, I'm that. You work through the polarity. That's what the splintering is about. Discovering the two sides of where you are. And when you face the conflict, you go inside, find the new idea that comes out of the Chalal Panui. That's a tzimtzum moment. You get the next conflict. So a master of accounting is working through a series of conflicts and not flagellating yourself and torturing yourself and making yourself feel like garbage. Okay? That's my opinion.
In the future, we'll try to keep it to questions and not comments, okay? ובפרט and especially, כשיזכר תומאס נפשי, when a person will recall the impurity of the soul, bechatas nu'urim, through the sins of the youth, fa'pagam sha'asa b'l yoinim, and the blemish that one made above through the sins of the youth. So the sins of the youth is a euphemism. In general, Chassidus, when it talks about chatas nu'urim, the sins of the youth, it's a reference to the intentional seminal discharge, what's called zera levatala. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that if a person thinks into chatas nu'urim, these particular sins of the youth, and consider the pegam sha'asa b'l yoinim, the incredible blemish that a person creates above in the higher worlds through this sin. Now the truth is, every single time a person sins, the person creates a pagam bel yoinam, a person creates a blemish above. The Alter Rebbe is referring to this particular sin, first of all, because in Kabbalah it talks about the incredible amount of tumah. We spoke about this a little in Perek Zayin, chapter 7. The incredible amount of powers of impurity that's unleashed through this particular sin of zera levatala. And moreover, it's also a sin which is ubiquitous.
Is what?
Ubiquitous? How do you pronounce the word? Ubiquitous.
What does that mean?
It's very, very common. It's very, very difficult to find someone that's nucky. So therefore, even if someone happens to be a Beinoni today, so the chances are that this is something, if you're looking for a place, for mevachane, looking a place to crush for yourself, this is a sin which generally can be found, and contemplate the incredible damage that you did above through this avera, through this sin. 1 second.
Is that why it says Nu'urim?
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 Sins of the youth.
Is that why?
Because, but that'll call, it's shaykh more to the young people. But 1 second. We're talking here about a person who's a Beinoni. This person has done Truva. Why does he have to worry about averos that he's done in the past? So yeah, we know Ein Davar Arim B'fnei HaTruva. Truva can fix everything. So what's why is this different than any other avera?
As if the Avera is not there any longer.
Right. Says the Alter Rebbe, Visham, and over there, Hulamayla Mahazman. The problem is that when you do an avera, and this is really true about any avera, when you do an avera, you make a pegam l'mayla, you're causing a blemish above. The problem is that above in the higher worlds, it's a dimension which transcends time. There's no such thing as time. There's no such thing as this happened yesterday and this is going to happen tomorrow and this happened today. Whatever is. So therefore, ki'ilu pagam v'nit ma'ayim chatz v'shalom mamish. It's as if it happened today, because there is no sense of time above. The place where you made the damage in the higher spiritual worlds is a plane which is above time. 1 second.
What about the Truva?
Yeah, but if my Aveda is above time, then so is my Truva. So just like the Truva, in other words, if I did the Aveda 10 years ago and I did Truva 9 years ago, so today I did Aveda and I did Truva also. So again, how does that help me, the fact that it's Lamayla Mazman? Says the Alter Rebbe, even though the person has already done a proper Truva, the main Truva is in the heart. Meaning to say, the Alter Rebbe says, you did Truva Nechayna. What is a proper Truva? The essence of Truva is the firm resolve never to do the Aveira again. That is Truva Nechayna. According to Halacha, that's enough. Truva is a concept in Halacha, because someone who does Aveiros is Pasula Edis, right? And it's considered a Rasha. So Charat ala Avar is not the Iker, is not Ma'akiv. Iker Truva, Alter Rebbe talks about it in the Gersh Truva. The main thing of Truva is the Kabbalah, Aziva Sachet Belavad, leaving the Aveira Hainu, as Alter Rebbe says, Sheyashuv Beliboy, Labal Yashuv Oid Lechisla, that he's going to made a firm resolve, he's never again going to repeat the foolishness and to rebel against Hashem. That's Truva Nechayna. But Iker Truva, the essence of Truva is Taka Believe, is in the heart, is in the regret.
What does that mean? Oh, in the left.
In the left, yeah. In other words, the Truva on a very simple Truva Nechayna, proper Truva, according to Halacha, simple Truva, which when you come up above, that's enough. Your Aveda doesn't exist anymore. You're forgiven, is pashat, the simple, the intense resolve never to do that very again. That's a tshuva nachayna. But ikar tshuva, you want to go to deeper, the depth of what tshuva really is. It's balev, it's in the heart, and that involves regret. How much regret do you have? So, the answer is that.
How do you evaluate?
That depends on the day. It depends on the person. Depends on the day. Al-Tebbe points out that David HaMelech, that after the story of David and Bathsheba, when he got a visit from Nasna Navi who berated him, so you have in Kapitel Nun Aleph. So what does it say? That David HaMelech says, amongst the things he says, it's a very, if you read the Kapitel and you think into what it's saying, very heartsick, and he's obviously completely broken by what happened. That's where he says, Ruach Nishbara, Leiv Nishbar, Zivchi Elokim Ruach Nishbara. So one of the things he says over there in the process of his deep, deep regret and Truva is V'chatasi negdi samid, which is that my sin will always be against me.
He did tshuva.
What?
He did tshuva.
What, is that a healthy thing? He did tshuva? At what point do you say that you're allowed to forgive yourself? To use today's 21st century terminology. At a certain point you got to move past it. But David HaMelech already here in the beginning is declaring, no, I'm never moving past it. V'chatasi negdi samid. As long as I live, I will always be aware and conscious of my sin. In a different place in Tanya, in the Ger Satruva, the Alter Rebbe says that the word lenegdi brings rayas from the Torah, that the word lenegdi, it says meneged oil moyed, it says rochik mil. And the word meneged means from a distance. So just to understand, when David says chatasi negdi samid, he didn't mean that it's going to be over here, and that's going to cover his vision. That's the only thing that he's aware of. From a distance, it doesn't. It's not something which is there and crushing me on a daily basis, but it never leaves my consciousness, never leaves my awareness, at least from a distance. But why? If I do tshuva, why can't I just move past it?
Forget.
And what's wrong with forgetting? If I erased it, let me forget it. What?
Why should he have it in his mind?
Why should he?
Yeah, it's clearly you never did it.
So he should know not to do it again.
Okay, so you could say one thing is it's definitely a valid answer. The Alter Rebbe is going to give us a deeper answer. Alter Rebbe is going to say, if ikar tshuva is balev, the main part of tshuva is in the heart, which means to regret what you did. Why is it important to regret? Because the tshuva is about returning to Hashem. And if you're returning to Hashem, how can you not feel regret for what you did? How can you not feel it? It's part of the package. But how much regret are you expected to feel? Okay, we don't have any scale.
How you measure?
We have no, right? It's not. But one thing we do know, it depends on the person, because different people have different capacity for feeling regret. And why is that? Because your regret depends on your knowledge, your sensitivity, and the depth of your relationship with Hashem. A very simplistic example. Let's say you have a child, chas v'shalom, 10-year-old child, gets the anger tantrum, and he burns a painting, a valuable heirloom painting. Sorry? A Picasso. He emerges from his temper tantrum, and he feels regret. Even a 10-year-old, right, feels regret on a 10-year-old level. 20 years later, how much is he going to regret what he did?
Not too much.
Not too much?
Yeah,
Much more. Much more.
Learning what he did.
Because he's going to appreciate that. How much can a 10-year-old understand what he did?
Oh, I see. There's more das.
Much more. And let's say when he's 30 years old, he decides that he's going to art school. And he learns all about Picasso. I don't know, Picassos, are they real or not?
Everything.
What?
Millions of dollars.
His regret is going to become even more. The more he understands, the more he appreciates, the greater the regret. When you're in a relationship with someone, you hurt that person, you can regret. But let's say after that, the relationship intensifies, the relationship improves, the feelings become more positive. So what's going to happen? The regret is going to increase, because now you feel even worse that you hurt someone who was so special and who you love so much. And the exact same thing is true as Truva. When a person does an Avera, by definition, the fact that he did an Avera shows how spiritually insensitive he is. How much regret can he feel at that time? So a very basic Truva is, you have to feel regret commensurate to the level where you are. But tomorrow, when you move to a higher level, when you learn some more Torah, when you daven a little, and your relationship with Hashem has been, now you understand much more what an Avera is. Your regret has to be deeper.
So your truth is not over.
So as you're growing, your tshuva has to grow with you. And that's why David HaMelech said, V'chatasi negdi samid. He says, my sin is never going away, because as much as I'm going to grow, I'm never growing out of this. My tshuva will always grow with me.
And you had a story along with it.
Yes. But I'm not repeating it because see, that's why I'm not repeating it, because I figured the story from Absad going, right? Very good. Yes. Gives me nachas. But there we were talking about a different point. We weren't talking mamash about this point. We were talking about how change is that regret is a result of change. Right? I said a slightly different point, but the same story applies, yeah. So that's why David HaMelech says, Chatasi nagdi samit. So what's the Alter Rebbe saying? So you want to do mevachim, you want to cross yourself, so you think about the chatas nurim, you think about the sins of your youth. And since Lamaila, where you made the pagam, where you made the blemish, it's Lamaila, Mazman is higher than time, so it's as if you did the Avera today. Now you're going to say, 1 second, but I also did Truva. Great. But it's very possible that the Truva that you did 3 days ago is not adequate for today. So in that case, what do you have? The Avera you have, but your Truva isn't up to snuff.
You have to update.
You have to update your Truva. Yes, your Truva always exists. Your Avera exists and your Truva exists. It's Lamayla Mazman, but you always have to make sure that the Truva matches the Avera. And the Truva has to be according to the level where you are today. Let's do this inside. Even though that the person already did a proper Truva, Truva is primarily in the heart. There are many different levels in the heart. How much regret do you have to have? That depends on what kind of person you are. Your capacity, your heart's capacity. That depends on the time, that depends on the place. As is known to those who know. And therefore, now at this moment, when a person sees by himself, he sees that the light of the neshama is not catching on. Miklal. From this he can infer that today your tshuva wasn't accepted. 3 days ago your tshuva was fine, but today your tshuva wasn't accepted. You need to upgrade. Your Aveda, today your Aveda is separating you from Hashem. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to say something even more radical. Or there's another possibility. The possibility is that your tshuva at this moment is fine. In other words, based on the level where you are, your tshuva is appropriate. But in heaven, they're not happy because you've stalled your growth. They want you to grow to a higher level and then do tshuva on the higher level also. In other words, the first possibility is you grew, the tshuva didn't grow along with you. And now the second possibility is, no, you're fine. But the problem is you've been stagnating inside. From heaven, this is a signal that they want you to rise to a higher level of tshuva. From a deeper level of the heart. And that's why David said, my sin is always against me because I'm constantly challenged to do tshuva on a higher level. So this was the next level of mivachin. The first one is who you are. And the second level of mivachin is they're saying that also look back at the sins you've done in the past. Yeah, the Alter Rebbe singles out a particular Avera, but it's true regarding all Averas. Every Avera makes a pagam bel yonim. And you have to realize that if you have timtum alev, part of the mivachin is realizing I have to do tshuva again on a higher level for the things that I did wrong in the past. Simon B'toiv. Good Shabbos, everyone.